Yeah, hello. So, I am going to talk about truthers, and this is linked in a way to another video that I've either already put out or I will put out, which is about the battle against individualism and why those handful of people in power, and I don't mean politicians or Bill Gates or anybody like that, I mean the people way above them, how they understand the benefits of tribalism. But I elaborate on that separately. But you see, the truth community, I think, was never a community. Well, it's become a community, and it should never have done so. So I think that there's a difference between sharing a view, right? Sharing a concern on a specific issue, and there's that. And then there's being a community, right? There's a big difference, and I think I've certainly fallen into this trap a bit, not a lot, but a little bit from time to time, of feeling like we need to band together. We actually don't. So if you think about it, why? I think the only reason I would argue is for sharing of information. And you might say, well, hang on, how about protests? Well, protests, sorry, but they don't do anything. And the reason a protest doesn't work now is because most people don't know it's happened, because the media won't cover it, or they'll talk it down. And so the whole point of a protest, a big protest, is where you have media, and I'm talking mainstream media, which is what most people still watch and listen to. It's where that media covers that protest, right? Because then what happens is the rest of the population think, bloody hell, that's a lot of people. I wonder why they all believe that, right? And then that helps to influence public opinion. But if you don't follow it, if you don't put it out on mainstream media, or you do and you play it down, you say there were 1,000 people there instead of 100,000, then the whole point of that protest has really gone out the window. And in fact, we can still absolutely, I think we will win better as individuals who from time to time will align with each other in order to share information and friendships. I mean, I'm not against friendships, right? But I am very concerned about the risk of tribalism and how that actually ends up playing into the hands of those people. Let me give you an example. Anybody who still follows, I don't know why I've gone this weird colour, but anybody who still follows Alex Jones, they're an example of why tribalism works for that handful of people at the top and is a real problem for people like, well, the rest of us. Because there'll be people, you see, who followed Alex Jones back in the day when he was actually telling the truth, or I guess what we assumed to be the truth. It certainly wasn't what they wanted people to know. Yeah. For example, things about when he did the whole thing of blowing open Bohemian Grove, that kind of stuff. Well, he's a very different guy now, because now he's politically affiliated with Trump and he supports Trump in everything. So the guy now isn't telling truth anymore, but he's telling a story, and it's not the story that's in any way aligned with truth. But I bet you there's still an awful lot of the people that used to follow him, right, still follow him. That's the problem with tribalism or with community. Because communities and tribes tend to end up having leaders or a group leading them. And that group then can be infiltrated, it can be co-opted, coerced, blackmailed, bribed, however, into doing exactly what that handful of people want to be done. You see my point? So individuals, however, if you've got a planet of 8 billion individuals, I don't think we have, but those 8 billion individuals are far more difficult to influence than, let's say, a number of political parties and all of their supporters. Yeah, and then if you take politics out of it, followers of pop performers, right? They were used as influencers. Big YouTube channels were used to influence people during COVID. They were paid money to influence people to behave in a certain way, and it worked. Again, nothing wrong with, I subscribe to many YouTube channels. I've unsubscribed to quite a few, but I will remain subscribed to any YouTube where I find the content of interest. I have one red line. Yeah, one overall red line, which is if what they're talking, if at any point they demonstrate to me that they lack humanity, or they support something that demonstrates that they do not possess empathy and compassion, they're off. I'm unsubscribed. Because normally what that means is they've also been co-opted into somebody else's agenda. I'll give you an example. There's a guy, an English guy, I don't know the channel name, right? So I'm not going to drop him. Yeah, so like I would do any damage because I've got a few hundred subscribers. I think most of him are dead anyway. And he's got he's in the tens of thousands, if not more. That should tell you a lot because he's been around a relatively short period of time. But he did a video about the apparently what he called them as libtard pro-Palestine supporters. And he was going up to them and, basically his challenge was, why are you doing that? Why aren't you more interested in what's happening in this country? So he's either really stupid and he doesn't understand that actually what happens in another country, particularly that particular country in Israel, where so many of the leaders of the Western world are either blackmailed by Israel or they are affiliated with Zionism because they either nutcases and they believe in it, or they've got financial incentives to go along with it. He doesn't understand that in and of itself is why you should be concerned about what happens in Gaza. I mean, the other reason, of course, is that there's millions, well, not millions, but I don't know, it could be. There's certainly hundreds of thousands of innocent people and children being slaughtered. That's actually the bit that makes me angry, right? It's not that more strategic piece. When you look at, for example, who it is that are partners with Israel to help them, like Palantir, that we're partnering now in the UK. The US has done a big partnership thing with them in its big beautiful deal, thanks to Donald Trump. So even if you put all that to one side, you should just have a problem with it because it's abhorrent what they're doing. But this guy didn't, you see. He called them libtards and said that they're just, they've got nothing else to worry about apart from a few brown people in another country. Well, he's an idiot. He's an idiot or he's evil. Probably both. Right? He's probably a stupid, evil bastard. The reality is that kind of thinking. Now, he's got followers and a lot of them. So that means he's taken a lot of people who are truthers, if they remain, because I did subscribe because he did a couple of videos on chemtrails. I thought, oh, this guy's interesting, I'll subscribe. And then I saw a video about him doing on this march, and then I looked at some of the other videos and I realised, oh, okay, so this guy actually has got an agenda, and that agenda is nowhere near aligned with anything that I believe in. And the red line for me is about, if you're allowing something or giving or refusing or not wanting to cover something that is fundamentally inhumane. It's about the mass murder of people. That's the red line. That's a lack of humanity, right? Or it means you've been paid off. Either way, I'm not going to subscribe or watch any more of your videos. Fuck you. So that's my red line. But otherwise, I'll listen to lots of different people, and I'll kind of think, okay, I don't agree with that point or this point, but I found that really interesting. Now that's an individual, right? So I'm guessing, I'm not saying I'm immune, right, to being part of a club, saying that, but what I'm saying is at least I've got an awareness of the risk of that and what what can go wrong. I'm not saying people shouldn't be part of a community, but it's about retaining your individuality, retaining objectivity, and never becoming too emotionally, because it is about emotions, too emotionally dependent on that community. So in other words, with government, the old saying that effectively government becomes the adult, they become the parent to the adult. Yeah, and this is why government can then do that whole thing about, if you misbehave, these are the consequences, or here's a problem, don't worry, because your parent will go out and fix it for you, so don't you worry about it. Like, the jabs will fix COVID for you. We've sorted it, don't you worry. Now we've frightened you to death. Same with religion. Religion is the same, all the same. Organised religion is evil. I don't care what religion it is, and this is why, because people easily say that I'm a supporter of Muslims. No, I'm not. But what I am against is anyone stereotyping a whole group of people in a certain way. So, whilst I've got no interest in joining any religion at all, because they're all man-made, it's ridiculous. It's a control system. At the same time, I understand that in every group of people there will be good people and there will be bad people. So I don't care who that is, whether it's people that sign up to whatever's in the Torah, whether it's, certainly not the Talmud, but the Torah perhaps, people that sign up to the Quran, all of that kind of stuff. There'll be good people and there'll be evil people. It's that simple, right? And there's probably far more good people around than there are evil people around. Unfortunately, amongst that majority of good people, there seem to be an awful lot of people who are lazy thinkers, or who lack the capability to think properly, with clarity, or who are just cowards. Because to be an individual I don't think you have to intentionally. It's not about doing something brave, but it's about retaining your individuality when perhaps the people around you don't want you to. Okay, so in other words, it'd be easier for you to be the same as everybody else. It'd have been easier for me when I was at school to have been part of the group, which was everybody that had watched Grease, the film. Okay, but I just had no desire to watch it. If I wanted to, I'd have watched it, right? Regardless. But I just thought shit, I'm not interested. And so therefore I didn't. But I had loads of people saying, "Oh, what's the matter with you? Why didn't you go and watch Grease?" And I thought, I don't want to. And that actually didn't bother me. But I think some people it does, and they don't want to be that person that hasn't done what everybody else has done. That I have to say, can make those people, even though they might be good people in a way, they're weak people. Now we've all got our weaknesses, and that I've got weaknesses for sure. But I've learned that one of them isn't a crucial one, which is a weakness around individualism. Yeah, I am an individual, that's for sure. Yeah, and I'm certainly not. I said to my little boy, look, when it comes to money, just don't do anything I do, right, and you'll be all right. So I'm quite objective about my strengths and my very long list of weaknesses or not so strong parts of my character and the way I have gone about my life. But because I have screwed an awful lot of stuff up in my life, I've learned a lot, because I haven't got that problem with an ego that sits in the way to try and protect me from reality, right? So it's painful at times, and you think back and you think, oh, I was a cock. What did I do that for? That's never a pleasant experience when it's you that you're thinking about and you're kind of cringing, like you might cringe at David Brent on The Office, and you cringe at something you said or did and think, why did I do that? But it's great to do that, right? To be able to look back and reflect and learn from it. Because if you block it out, or you just stick to believing you were doing the right thing, even though you really know you weren't, but it's just nicer it's easier to think you were, then you don't learn, you don't grow. Okay, I think that's it. I actually started this video intending to talk about something completely different, which was about jabs, actually. It's about jabs. I'm going to put it on here to remind myself. It's about jabs and the impact of long term, and that's why I don't believe that there's any requirement for there to be any further work done around population reduction. Okay, because I don't. So I think anyone that's worried, that's it. Anyone that's worried about World War III, I don't think you need to be. If you're worried about nuclear war, you know, a la Threads, that movie, or The Day After, the American version, or any of those, you don't need to be, because we're talking about globalists in power here. These are people who they're not limited by country, right? So, you know, they don't want to fucking wreck the planet, because they live on it still. Yeah, they haven't yet, well, to my knowledge, I mean, who knows, but to our knowledge, they haven't yet perfected a way of jumping off the planet and going somewhere else after a nuclear war, because that's what you'd probably have to do. That's if nukes exist, obviously. That's another story. But anyway, goodbye.